The Chiefs host the Commanders on Monday Night Football, and the Commanders will be without Jaden Daniels today on Locked On Chiefs.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome back to another crossover episode. Locked On Chiefs, Locked On Commanders. Today's crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Lot to talk about when we get into this game. Commanders coming to Arrowhead on a Monday Night Football game. Going to be a lot of fun. Going to be talking about the keys to the win a little bit later. Washington secondary versus the Chiefs wide receivers, and the Chiefs offensive line versus the defensive line of the Commanders a little bit. But we're going to start with talking about the stories that are surrounding the Commanders and the stories surrounding the Kansas City Chiefs right now. And we are joined by host of the Locked On Commanders podcast, David Harrison. David, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Don't get a chance to talk to you very often, but always enjoy these crossover episodes with you. So let's get into it. The Commanders are dealing with a little bit of injuries right now. You want to give us the lowdown on that?
Yeah, I mean, so far through 7 games, they've lost, to my count, 30 games worth of starter snaps just due to injuries. And actually, I thought about this today. That's not counting Sam Cosmi, who missed the first 6 weeks of the season due to the injury that he suffered last year. So, you know, that number is actually closer to 40 now, and they're going to miss even more because Jaden Daniels suffered the hamstring injury against the Dallas Cowboys early in the third quarter when the game was still at least somewhat within reach. And, you know, comes off the field, ends up going in the blue tent, jogs off the field. But, you know, from the moment that he hit, honestly, from the moment I saw him reaching for his hamstring there on the AT&T Stadium surface, I was just like, well, there goes Monday night. And, you know, any given Sunday, any given Monday, all that stuff. But just as far as Jaden's availability, just there goes Monday night. And you know, to the point where on Wednesday, the team hasn't even practiced yet. You know, the team's first practice of the week because of the Monday night schedule is Thursday, and already reports, and I've already confirmed with a reliable source that, yeah, Jaden is not playing Monday night against Kansas City Chiefs. So it's going to be Marcus Mariota making his 3rd start for the Commanders, making his, 6th game appearance. It'll be his 4th, or no, actually his 7th game appearance. Call it like his 4th serious game appearance if you want to go that direction. But yeah, Marcus Mariota is going to get the opportunity, and, you know, he's certainly no Jaden Daniels. But, you know, there are good things that Marcus does that's different from Jaden. So it is just a little bit of a different look for the Chiefs defense to go up against. But certainly I'm sure Spags is appreciating getting ample notice that he's got to prepare for number 8 instead of number 5.
So are those linebackers. This seems to be a little bit tough with this process for Jaden. You know, year 2 sometimes just throws you for a curve, and hopefully they can get him back. I won't say that I mind him being out this particular week, but, you know, hope he comes back healthy. So when you make that shift, it's not just about Marcus, in my opinion. It's about how everybody works with Marcus Mariota, who I think actually has gotten a bit of an undersell for most of his career. He has capabilities, but it's that chemistry aspect. And with receivers that we're going to talk about coming up, it's a lot of coming together around the backup quarterback.
Yes.
How does that look to you from where you're sitting?
You hit the nail right on the head, because here's the thing about when Marcus Mariota is in there. Other players seem to play better when Marcus Mariota is in there. And this isn't, you know, Jaden elevates people around him, right? Like, that's kind of just something, even as a young quarterback, we already see that ability. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, he's of the ilk of a Patrick Mahomes as far as, like, elevating guys around him. You know what I mean? But, like, you can already see that ability to make the players around him better. With Marcus, it's not a dig at Marcus, but it's almost like he is the backup quarterback, right? So we all know that we need to be on our game better because we don't have Jaden to kind of save the day type of situation. So whatever the reason is, honestly, do you care about the why more so you just care about the play being elevated, right? So if that kind of holds true, if the O-line blocks a little bit longer, a little bit harder because Marcus is back there, if the receiver's hands are just a little bit more secure, because you'll take whatever it is. And that's why whenever Marcus comes in, as long as it's like a 1 game, even a 2 game stretch, like you really feel okay for 1 game. It's when you get to the 2 or 3 games or even a long-term situation, that's when you're just kind of like, okay, like this isn't really a viable situation for long-term. But if it's a 1 game, you know, one-off, that's when you kind of are okay with it, I would say. And the biggest difference between he and Jaden that the Chiefs are going to have to kind of account for is Jaden's much more of a left-right type of runner, right? He's not really a run through the pocket type of guy. He likes to run around people. Marcus is the opposite. When Marcus decides to take off, he puts a cleat in the dirt and he gets upfield. He gets north and south in a hurry. And, you know, he's a little bit older, but if you think he's too old, just wait till you see him on the opportunities. He does get to run. Go watch the tape. He did it a couple times against the Cowboys, did it against the Raiders. Like when he gets going, he can still move a little bit. You still need him to get down. Don't take the hits, things like that. But that's the biggest difference, I would say, between the two quarterbacks is Marcus just much more decisive. And to a point where sometimes you kind of hope, like while Jaden is watching, pick that up. You know what I mean? Pick that up and develop that part of your skill set. Because if Jaden does that and gets north and south, but it's for a different crossover, not a Chiefs crossover. But I think that's for Chiefs fans and the defense for what they're going to see on Monday.
And if we flip it over to the Chiefs side, you guys are dealing with injuries. Kansas City has a couple of injuries, and we got a little bit of an update. We'll see if it ends up being the case. Trey Smith, it looks like maybe will be okay for this week. Dealing with some O-line injuries. We'll talk about the O-line a little bit later. But they're finally starting to get healthy on offense. You look at this offense, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Rashee Rice, you have Xavier Worthy, you have Hollywood Brown, all playing at the same time. And don't forget Travis Kelce, who isn't the Travis Kelce of 5 years ago, but he's still a very good player, still has a role in this offense. This team is finally starting to get healthy at the right time, starting to be able to put things together. I think that's really the biggest storyline from the Chiefs' perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and this is 2 weeks in a row. You know, the Dallas Cowboys brought back Kevontae Turpin, brought back CeeDee Lamb just in time to face the Commanders and the Kansas City Chiefs. I know it was last week. But you know, you watch that little tune-up they had against the Raiders, and you're just like, oh man, like you just got to buckle up and hold on for dear life and hope that you can go swing for swing with an offense like that. But yeah, man, look, if Trey Smith wants to take a week off, you know what I mean? Josh Simmons, go ahead. Creed Humphrey, like all y'all get an early vacation. You know what I mean? Like the Commanders aren't gonna be upset about that. But yeah, tons of weapons. So I think the defense in Washington has already been bend don't break. Type of a defense. Last weekend, they broke, right? Like a 74-yard touchdown pass to CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys were, I think, 5 for 5, if I remember correctly, in the red zone. And the Commanders, up until last week, was one of the best red zone defenses in the NFL. Cowboys, one of the worst red zone offenses in the NFL. So that was an area that you were supposed to be able to be effective, and they just absolutely weren't. It just fell apart on all three levels of the defense. And I think, if you want to look for a silver lining as a Commanders fan, like, could it get worse against Kansas City? I mean, unfortunately, you actually could say yes, but in theory, no. Like in theory, you should have a little bit of a better unit. And again, getting Terry back potentially, getting Debo back potentially. You know, at least you want to go out there if you're on Monday Night Football, especially against a team like the Chiefs, and show signs of life, right? Like just go out there and battle it out and make sure that people have a reason to stay up for the fourth quarter.
Well, and I think that's something that with the big games that we've seen for the Commanders in the last year, maybe it's not as much an advantage for the Chiefs to be used to playing in primetime, because they've had some big games that have come out and they've been able to rise to the occasion. I know, Marcus, being at quarterback does make you have to do that a little bit more, but I like what you get from the running back, who I'm not going to call him by a nickname, as I'm going to wait for you to actually tell me that I'm doing that right. I don't know if the guy likes to be called that. So
that's what he wants to be called, Bill. He prefers to be called Bill. Yep.
Okay. Well, then now I have the go-ahead. I don't know if that's enough to raise the offense to keep up, but I do think that they have enough within the room to try to double down on what they can do well and try to keep it to a game that is within reach.
I think when I look at this game, and it's crazy because Ryan and I talk about this every single week, that we, before the crossover and really getting ready for the game, you have to always prepare like they're going to come out and play like this is their Super Bowl, because generally speaking, most teams look at the Chiefs as playing almost their Super Bowl, and that has happened to the Chiefs so many different times. We're going to talk about some of the major matchups in this game right after this. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how absolutely quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. My favorite part, Prize Picks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. And the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 off, for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right.
The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering for your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets is a hassle. Between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout, it's really frustrating, and that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered every time at the best price, plus all the fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pull up Game Time anytime to get a couple of taps. I get amazing deals. I get to see where my seat is. I get to see my favorite NFL games for as low as $100. You can too. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, that's promo code LOCKEDONFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
Actually, just this last segment, we were talking about how the Chiefs are finally healthy. And one of the biggest things that they finally have started to get healthy at is the wide receiver position. This is going to be a key matchup in your mind, David, when you look at the secondary with the Commanders versus this Chiefs wide receiver room.
Yeah, I mean, multiple people have kind of pointed it out. This Commanders defense they look slow. You know what I mean? And I know it's one of the oldest, it's the oldest team in the NFL. And all that age is not necessarily in the secondary, but you do have, what's starting to look like a slower version of Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, it's hard to really kind of pinpoint it. Marshawn has never been the most technical cornerback, in the NFL. Like he's never been just that. He's always been a mauler, a dog who's just going to, kind of outfight your biggest dog and all those things. But the thing about that is you have to be able to keep up, right? And you just see too many times, especially against George Pickens, where he's trying to run, trying to keep up, and he just can't get his head around because he's just doing everything he can to keep, step for step with the receiver. So, if that's something that the Chiefs find a way to exploit. Quan Martin has had some blown coverage. I mean, there's nobody who's safe in the secondary. Surprisingly enough, the most consistent player in the secondary this year has been Trey Amos, the second-year rookie, which, a rookie cornerback, you usually expect to kind of have those struggles. And, as I say that, I'm going to knock on wood because this could be his first week, where you really look at it and say, yeah, there's a rookie. So hopefully that doesn't happen, and I don't speak that into existence. But it's going to be really interesting, guys, because Dan Quinn has also kind of talked about, to kind of right the ship, like simplifying things a little bit, and you go back to, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, but if any Chiefs fan hasn't seen the 74-yarder they gave up to CeeDee Lamb, for one, it's a little bit comical. Marshawn Lattimore takes Quan Martin out of the play, trying to essentially center field the pass, right? Like if you watch him, he kind of turns and is falling backwards, trying to cradle catch the ball, which is never I don't know anybody above middle school level, if that teaches that method of going after a football. But the part of the reason is Marshawn Lattimore is not a deep cover safety, right? And it was actually one of the rare times that Joe Witt put his defense in cover two, but he tried to disguise it. So he had Marshawn Lattimore and Quan Martin as the two deep two deep zones. Obviously, Marshawn's not a safety, but he's essentially back there trying to be a safety. And it just showed really obviously Marshawn doesn't know how to be a safety. He doesn't know how to play center field. That's not his game. And what ends up happening is, Quan blows the coverage, but Marshawn makes a terrible decision in backing him up, trying to cover up that mistake. And he ends up taking both of them out of the play. CeeDee Lamb walks in for a touchdown. So, just those types of things, like getting cute with the coverages. I get it. But at the end of the day, I think Joe Witt Jr., the D coordinator, has to kind of realize you're not tricking Patrick Mahomes, right? Like Pat Mahomes is not going to get fooled by anything you do. So if you're going to play cover two, man, just play cover two. You got two safeties back there. Put them deep. Put your corners in their position. Put your middle of the field defender in their position. And just tell your guys, listen, we just have to be more technically sound than them. They're going to get their yards. They're going to get completions. The key is don't give up the 74-yarder. Buckle down on third. Buckle down in the red zone. Try to turn this into a field goal game. And see if you can't get into the fourth quarter, score back. There's nothing wrong with that type of a situation. It's what the Jacksonville Jaguars did, and you just find your opportunity to strike big and see if you can't eke out a win.
I think that how they go about it is probably going to set the table for what it is. Do they want to man up? Do they think that they can get away with that? Or do they have to go into what is unfamiliar territory? With Rice back, I think it changes the equation because you have what I think is one of the stronger defenders in Sandstrom. He's going to see Xavier. He's going to see Rasheed all day out of the slot. It's not going to – there's no relief in sight now that they're both back. And so, like, what do they do to make adjustments? If you had a feel for that, what are you guessing?
I mean, I can't tell you what they're going to do because I'm very intrigued by Dan Quinn's comments of there's going to be a lot of adjustments made, just maybe not the adjustments you expect. And I'm like, oh, okay, you got my ears peaked a little bit. And obviously I'm going to be watching for some stuff. Here's what I can tell you I would try to do from my foxhole, from my limited knowledge of, in the meetings and et cetera, from a media perspective. I would go to a 3-3-5. And truthfully, the Commanders have actually run 3-3-5 like a good amount. Like I think it's like 30% usage rate this year. So it's not like it's an unknown look for them. But I would go to kind of a 3-3-5 look, and obviously, it could be more of a 3-2-6. It could be a 3-4-4, like just kind of a 3-3-5 elements, right? You want 3 down linemen, 3 middle defenders, 5 cover guys for that sake, and you can look at it different. What I like about that type of a look is you obviously still want to have at least 4 rushers. I don't know that I would just let Patrick Mahomes sit there in the pocket with 3 rushers all day. So I think you still want to have at least 4. But where that 4th guy comes from is the magic. That's where you can find that magic, right? And maybe you rush your 3 down linemen one side, you bring another rusher to the other side, you wrap them around, you twist, you stunt. I still remember the time that Todd Bowles put Sean Murphy bunting in the shade and had him blitz through the A gap in the Super Bowl, and Pat Mahomes quite literally just looked at Sean Murphy, this DB coming through his offensive line, and was like, what are you doing? And that's like the only time I think I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes confused, because who in their right mind puts a corner in the shade, right? But and gets away with it. I'm not saying the Joe should do that. I don't want to see Marshawn Lattimore, okay? But I'm just saying, like, you have that 4th rusher. That's where if you're going to get an advantage, you're not tricking Patrick Mahomes. Now let's trick the pass protection, which I know is a little bit of Patrick Mahomes too, right? But like, trick him that way, trick him in the protection setting versus the trying to, make Marshawn Lattimore a deep safety all of a sudden, and figure out new ways to bring your 4th guy in. Deron Payne as a 3-tech has been very effective when he's played in that position. Eddie Goldman as a nose, can you trust him to 2-gap for a game? Yeah, I think you could probably do that. He's not going to make any splash plays, but he can hold the point. And Javon Kinlaw, on the other side, I think he can do some damage as well. And I think it's a really good way to maybe get Frankie Louvu loose for once this season. So that's where I would go, right? I mean, for what it's worth, I don't know that that's what Joe is going to do, but I think it's at least a starting point.
And you actually kind of lead me right into what I want to talk about with this Chiefs offensive line versus the Commanders defensive line.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, I'm not going to say you can really trick Patrick Mahomes, but teams have actually got him a couple of times over the past couple of games. Look at his interception against Jacksonville. I mean, they dropped a linebacker he didn't see, and goes the other direction for a touchdown, completely slowing the game in that regard. And then he almost did it against the Raiders as well. I mean, he played a great game against the Raiders, but that was one play where if the Raiders linebacker picks it off, it kind of, I don't know that it changes the game specifically, but it does, at least give them a stop there. So I agree with you. I don't think you're going to really fool him, but you can trick him a little bit, and I do think that could really play in the Commanders' favor. But when you look at this offensive line for the Chiefs, I kind of talked about Trey Smith earlier. It's possible that he plays in this game after missing some time last week because of a bad back. If he's able to go, I think that's a huge boon for this team. But Josh Simmons isn't going to be there more than likely. It seems like he is can miss a 3rd straight game. Jalen Moore stepped in and played well, but you have a question there at left tackle. Is that going to be a situation where after a couple of games of film with Jalen Moore that they're going to find something that they can exploit to try to get after that left tackle? But if the Chiefs offensive line can stay healthy, if they can play, Jalen Moore and Jawan Taylor is okay at the right side, I think that this offensive line against that defensive line could be a good matchup.
Yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to, and that's kind of bleeds into the whole 3-3-5. Odd man front, basically. Just go odd man front, honestly. And not that like Javon Kinlaw would. So Javon would be like the end, quote unquote, on that side. Not that you're going to see him wide 9 or anything like that. But if Javon can occupy Jalen Moore, if he can occupy, again, you want a 2-gap, right? Can he occupy Kingsley and allow maybe Jacob Martin. Jacob Martin is not like this athletic freak who's going to just get loose on his own. But if you can scheme it up, like they were able to scheme up Dante Fowler last year to the point where Dante Fowler Jr. entered the offseason thinking he should be one of the highest paid pass rushers in the NFL, and that he was just so much better than people gave him respect for. And the Commanders like, yeah, bro, we're not gonna pay you because our scheme gave you a career season. Then he goes to Dallas and he ain't done nothing. No, look, Dante, I love you, brother, but it's just the truth. I mean, look, I do. Dante and I are cool. I don't know about after that, but listen, it's just the facts, right? So if you can, I've always kind of said, if you can scheme Dante Fowler free the way that they did last year, you should be able to do it with Jacob Martin. And I say you should, but it really hasn't happened. And the problem, guys, is that Dorrance Armstrong Jr. very quietly has been one of the best pass rushers in the NFL this season. He injures his knee against the Dallas Cowboys. He's lost for the year. That's your leading sack getter. Not only that, but on plays where Dorrance Armstrong, number 92, has been on the field, they've got a north of 41% pressure rate. Without him, that pressure rate drops to 36%. That's a massive decline in pressure rate for one guy, and that's exactly what they're dealing with. And that's on top of Dietrich Wise Jr., their other starting end coming into the season, being lost for the season. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who is a 7th-round, second-year player, who was the guy that stepped up for Dietrich Wise, and he got hurt. So you're missing literally your top 3 edge defenders, and now you're rolling through with Jacob Martin and maybe Von Miller. I don't know. He was brought in to be a mercenary, but do you ask him to play a full set worth of snaps? And then they brought back Jalen Holmes, who I love because he's a Buckeye, but like he's essentially like your 4th or 5th D end on your roster. And now if it's not Von Miller getting a full game's worth of snaps, it's going to be Jalen Holmes and Jacob Martin. So again, that's another reason I go 3-3. I go 3-3-5, right? Eddie Goldman in the middle, Javon Kinlaw on one end, Deron Payne on the other end, and then you use the other guys as weapons, as mix up, stunts and twists and all that stuff. Don't rely on them to try to win one-on-one. Rely on them to win through your scheme.
And I think Von's got enough experience that he likes to play against this team. We'll see what he can bring. Dorrance Armstrong, Rock Chalk. I hope you heal up very well. There are keys to every victory. We're going to get to those right after this. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IHS Top Safety Plus pick awards than anyone else. As of August 25, from footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Nappa leather upholstery. Like our players, we sweat every detail as well, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved.
This is the fun part of the show for me, because we start getting into, we talked about matchups a little bit. We talked about kind of the bigger storylines, but now it's keys to victory. What is it that you think that the Commanders can do to try to get and steal a win in Arrowhead on Monday night?
Yeah, 3 things. Number 1 is they got to take the ball away. I'm going to go 2 times. They got to take the ball at least 2 times. And, that might sound like a somewhat, reasonable number, but they've got 3 takeaways all year. So, yeah, that's a big problem for the Commanders defense right now. Offensive penalties. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, it's over 60% of their penalties as a team so far this season have been offensive holding and false start penalties. And what it's doing is it's leading to one of the worst 3rd down offenses in the NFL. Now, they actually converted, I think, north of 50%, right around 50% against the Dallas Cowboys. So that's an improvement. But unfortunately, it didn't produce the points that you need to keep up in a track meet against them. But that's got to continue. You got to continue to be good on 3rd down. It starts with those penalties. And then the last one, and you guys kind of touched on it already just a little bit. Cliff Kingsbury, I've been shouting it from the rooftops on Locked On Commanders, and not that he should be listening to Locked On Commanders and making decisions off of it, but this is a run-first offense. Even with Jaden Daniels, this is a run-first offense. And Cliff is just, I don't know if he's not drinking the Kool-Aid or he's not seeing the same thing. And certainly, I will never claim to know more about football and offenses in the NFL than Cliff Kingsbury, but I like me, so I agree with me. And I think that the best way to start off this game is a whole lot of duo, a whole lot of Trent Scott being an extra down lineman. Honestly, brother, bring 2 eligible linemen. Bring Trent Scott and Andrew Wiley onto the field. Let's put 7 big guys on the offensive line, duo everybody, and give Chris Rodriguez the ball between the guards, set up Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt for perimeter edge runs, bring in Jeremy McNichols as a savvy veteran to do a little bit of all of it, and pass protect in your obvious passing downs. And I think that just listen, I watched a few Chiefs games in my day, specifically covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when you're mismatched as much as this team is right now, especially due to all the injuries, you got to come out and punch them in the mouth, man. You got to come out and you just have to just be a bully. Try to be. I mean, you're in their yard. You got to try to be a bully. I said it on our last squad show. Like if you're Chris Jones, man, I want to see this team. I don't care where you're lined up. Chris Jones wide 9. I want to see 2 offensive linemen chasing that dude down. And I want to see Chris Rodriguez running right behind those 2 linemen and just do a Commanders version of tush push. Put Chris Jones on his back, buried underneath 2 fat offensive linemen while Chris Rodriguez Jr. piles up on top of him. You may only get 2 yards, but man, if you can just put some physicality on the Chiefs defense, that's the best way to get an angle on them. I don't think it's going to happen. It's just what I would do. And that's what I'm going to say because this is the show. So again, that one is probably not likely to happen, but I would love just try it, man. Like if you can get under Chris Jones' skin, if you can get Chris Jones on the ground a few times, you might have a chance to shake this team's confidence just a little bit.
You're not wrong. And I like you too, David. That's good. I'll tell you this. So the key for me is similar. And I do think McNichols might be the guy that can hurt them the most with his versatility. Yeah. They're going to make some assumptions there. But your plan, especially 7, but certainly 6 offensive, might throw mine off. Because the key for me, the matchup that has to happen here is the Chiefs have to win with George Karlaftis against Josh Conerly. You and I have watched in person enough offensive tackles to know that you have to exploit what you can find there. And this is a big game. Chris Jones, like you said, is going to get moved around. And you might even chase him down with 2 linemen. So it's up to George Karlaftis to be the new catalyst of this pass rush. And that has to go through Conerly. That's the number one thing that I'm watching when the Chiefs are on D.
I really love what you said, David, because the one thing that I would say that the Commanders are going to have the ability to do is if they come in with 6 or 7 offensive linemen and they try to run it at Kansas City, you're attacking one of their biggest weaknesses because right now they're going to be struggling in defensive tackle. They just lost Omar Norman Lott for the season, a talented second-round rookie, but they're going to really be hurting at that defensive tackle position. And if you're going to continue to run the ball over and over at them, I think that is a huge boon for this team, for the Commanders. And it also does something else. If you can be successful and get 3 or 4 yards per carry, if you're successful enough to where you're keeping the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, that absolutely helps you as well. So I do think that could be a huge key for them. When I look at this game, it's just a question of, can Kansas City continue to show who they are on offense? And what I mean by that is doing exactly what we talked about in the last segment, attacking the secondary. Find where you think they have weaknesses in the secondary and try to exploit them as much as you possibly can. Get these wide receivers going even more. And the one thing they didn't do last week, and I am guessing that they probably won't do a bunch of this week, is throw the ball deep. I would love to see a couple of deep shots just to continue to try to work on that and getting it ready for later in the season when they're playing some other teams, but also for the playoffs. So to me, it's continue attacking on offense, continue showing aggression. And one other thing that you noted, the Commanders haven't been great at getting turnovers, but the Chiefs have been very, very good at not turning the ball over. So them turning over the ball twice in one game will be something they haven't done all season, hoping that trend continues.
Yeah, what's crazy, guys, is the Washington Commanders have only given the ball away 8 times this season. I say only. It's about mid-level, right? It's about middle of the pack. But of all the teams who have given the ball away 8 or fewer times, I should say, this season, the Washington Commanders are the only team that's even -2 in turnover, more than -2 in turnover differential. They're -5. Okay, like they're like literally every other team that's giving the ball away at their rate is -2 or better because their defense is at least getting some of those back. They got to find a way to after the football, man. I mean, I don't know exactly what the answer is, but they got to find a way to get it done, because when you're a veteran like Marshawn Lattimore, simply being in position but not making the play is not good enough. Like that's like Trey Amos. If Trey Amos is there, but Rashee Rice and Patrick Mahomes just make a better play, he's a rookie, brother. Like you can get over that for the moment. You're Marshawn Lattimore, man. Like you can't ride on that wave. You mentioned it already. Rashee Rice in the slot against Mikey Sanders. So that size matchup difference. Mikey doesn't look 5'8" against a lot of people, but he looked 5'8" against Drake London. I know Drake is bigger than Rashee Rice, but I think Rashee is another one of those guys that can make him look 5'8". And then Mikey is not slow, but I think Xavier Worthy can make anybody look slow. So I think Mikey is in for a long night. We'll see if he can step up. He's got the football IQ. He certainly has the tenacity for it. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to back down to the challenge. And look, if they're going to get 2 takeaways, Mikey has the only interceptions on this defense all season. So maybe that's where they're going to come. I don't know, but it should be a lot of fun, man. You know, and I know like some Commanders fans are like, man, like this dude sounds really sad. Y'all got to remember, we're like 3 hours removed from finding out officially, well, unofficially, I guess the team hasn't said anything, but officially via my source that Jaden Daniels isn't playing in this game. So, you know, it's just a little bit of what it is, but we'll see. Again, Terry, Debo, any given Monday. See what happens, man. Maybe there's like a racing video out there from Rashid that hasn't hit the surface yet. We can find that and get that out there before Monday. No injuries, no car crashes, just maybe a little bit of illegal racing.
Don't care to see that at all, but I definitely understand where you're coming from on that. Thank you, David. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoy these shows. I'm going to be very curious to see how this game turns out, because if Kansas City can continue their path, that is quite the turnaround. Commanders are in a much tougher situation with losing their starting quarterback for this game. But as you said, any given Sunday, or in this case, any given Monday, hopefully you're wrong on that one, but we will see come Monday night. Thank you all for listening. We will be back tomorrow for a little bit more about this Commanders game on the Locked On Chiefs show. I'm sure David is going to have some more for you there, and then we will have previews for you on Monday. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow.